So you've got a problem, maybe even a big one. You're looking for a solution and perhaps wondering if there was a scientific way to find it. Well, if you're not expecting the answer to come in the form of a eureka moment or a lightning strike of inspiration, then you're in luck because science does have something to offer. In fact, the scientific method can help you solve your problems, but it's going to take a little adaptation. So keep watching to find out how to use the scientific method to turn your problems into opportunities. First, some important context. The scientific method is a logical and systematic approach to solving problems and acquiring new knowledge. It has been the bedrock of scientific progress since the days of Galileo and Newton and remains the primary tool of scientists around the world. Its steps include formulating a hypothesis, making predictions, designing experiments, collecting data, analyzing results, and drawing conclusions. Now, before you start seeing this as a step-by-step guide to fixing your problems, it's essential to acknowledge that the straightforward version of the scientific method is well suited for simple, isolated problems with clear variables. For instance, determining why a plant isn't growing might lead to an investigation into watering patterns or the need for sunlight. The scientific method is great at answering these types of questions. But what about complex, interconnected problems that resist simple solutions? Take climate change, poverty, or pandemics. These issues don't fit neatly into the traditional scientific method framework. They're messy, dynamic, and influenced by countless interacting factors. And this is where our adapted scientific method shines. Step 1. Observation and problem definition. The first step of the scientific method is observation, which involves carefully watching and describing a phenomenon in the traditional approach. This might entail measuring the temperature of water under various conditions to observe how it affects the growth of algae. However, when dealing with more intricate problems, observation alone is insufficient. We need a deeper, more comprehensive understanding of the context surrounding the problem. Let's go back to our example of a plant that isn't growing. If we stop at observation, we might simply note that the plant is not thriving. But to really understand the problem, we need to ask why. Why is the soil so dry? Has it rained lately? How much water does the plant need? What type of plant is it? Is it getting enough sunlight? Why is it in a pot? All of these observations provide valuable clues and lead us to a better understanding of the root causes of the problem. To effectively observe and define a problem using this adapted method, it's vital to consider the historical context, social implications, economic factors, and the diverse perspectives of all stakeholders involved. For example, to address the city's water scarcity crisis, we need to look beyond just rainfall patterns and water usage data. We must also understand the city's history, its social dynamics, economic activities, and the needs of its residents. We need to ask questions like, when did the city start facing water shortages? What are the different water uses and who controls them? How has the city grown over time? What industries rely heavily on water? Are there historical factors contributing to the current situation? By gathering this kind of rich contextual data, we set the stage for finding truly effective and lasting solutions. Step 2. Hypothesis generation. After careful observation comes the formulation of a hypothesis, which is a tentative explanation or proposed solution put forward to explain the observed phenomena. In the traditional scientific method, a hypothesis is a specific testable prediction about the relationship between variables. For instance, a scientist might hypothesize that increasing carbon dioxide levels will enhance plant growth under controlled conditions. In our adapted approach, however, generating hypotheses is less about forming a single testable prediction and more about exploring multiple potential solutions or interventions. At this stage, we brainstorm a range of ideas that could address the problem, even if they might not immediately appear to be scientifically sound or practical. Our goal is to come up with as many diverse and creative ideas as possible. It's a chance to think outside the box, consider unconventional approaches, and examine the problem from various angles. Some examples might include, in the case of the plant, testing different types of fertilizers, adjusting the amount of sunlight it receives, or changing the container it's growing in. In the case of a city's water scarcity, some potential solutions could involve building desalination plants, investing in water-efficient irrigation systems for agriculture, encouraging water conservation measures among households, or exploring wastewater treatment and reuse options. It's important to remember that these hypotheses or potential solutions should be informed by the evidence and insights gathered during the observation phase. They should also account for the unique context of the problem, considering the needs and perspectives of all stakeholders involved. This step benefits greatly from techniques like brainstorming, mind mapping, and design thinking, which encourage creative, interdisciplinary, and user-centric idea generation. Step 3, experimentation and testing. In the traditional scientific method, once a hypothesis is formed, the next step is to design and conduct experiments to test its validity. Experiments are carefully designed situations that allow researchers to manipulate variables and observe the outcomes. However, in our adapted approach, experimentation and testing come after the generation of potential solutions. At this stage, we move from theoretical ideas to practical interventions, implementing them on a small scale to see how they work in the real world. This could involve launching a pilot program, conducting a small-scale demonstration project, or running a limited-scale trial of a new policy or technology. For instance, if one of our potential solutions for the plant is to change the type of fertilizer, we might start by testing a small amount on a few leaves and monitoring the results closely. Or, in the case of a city's water scarcity, we might begin by installing water-efficient irrigation systems on a small number of farms to gauge their effectiveness in reducing water usage without impacting crop yields. Crucially, this step is not about definitively proving or disproving a hypothesis. Rather, it's about learning whether the intervention shows promise and identifying any issues or challenges that need to be addressed. It's an iterative process that involves continuous monitoring, evaluation, and adjustment. And it thrives on feedback, both from the data collected and from the people involved in the project. Robust data collection and analysis are key to this stage. Depending on the nature of the problem and the interventions being tested, this might involve A/B testing, randomized controlled trials, or other appropriate evaluation methods. Employing agile methodologies can also be beneficial in ensuring flexibility and adaptability throughout the experimentation process. Step 4, data analysis and interpretation. In the traditional scientific method, data analysis is primarily concerned with confirming or refuting the initial hypothesis. The focus is often on statistical significance and the extent to which the data support or refute the original prediction. Our adapted approach, however, takes a slightly different perspective. While analyzing the data gathered from our experiments, we remain open to the possibility that our initial solutions might not be the most effective or practical. Instead, we focus on extracting as much learning as possible from the data, regardless of whether or not it aligns with our initial ideas. The emphasis is on understanding why certain interventions worked or didn't work, what challenges arose, and how these challenges were overcome. For example, if we were testing different fertilizers on our plant, we wouldn't just look at whether the plant grew taller. We'd also want to understand how each fertilizer affected the plant's overall health, appearance, and growth rate. We'd also analyze any challenges, such as the complexity of applying the fertilizer or any negative effects it might have had on the plant or the environment. Similarly, in a water scarcity example, we might find that a desalination plant is technically effective at providing fresh water, but it becomes less viable when we consider the high energy costs, environmental impacts, and financial investment required. This stage demands a high level of critical thinking and the ability to interpret complex data sets, weave together various types of data, and extract meaningful insights. It is essential for refining our understanding of the problem and developing more robust and adaptable solutions. Step 5. Conclusion and communication. In the traditional scientific method, drawing conclusions usually means determining whether the hypothesis was supported or refuted by the data. This often culminates in a publication or presentation outlining the findings and their implications. Our adapted approach, however, extends beyond simply communicating the results. Once we've analyzed our data and gained a deeper understanding of the problem, the next step is to develop actionable plans for moving forward. This includes not only sharing our findings with relevant stakeholders, but also developing strategies for scaling up successful interventions and ensuring their long-term sustainability. For instance, if our plant is thriving after implementing a specific combination of watering, sunlight, and fertilizer, we might share our method with other plant owners in our community. In the case of a city facing water scarcity, if we find that public awareness campaigns combined with water-efficient appliances lead to significant water savings, we would develop a strategy for rolling out these measures across the city. This may involve working with policymakers to create incentives for water conservation, partnering with local businesses to promote water-saving technologies, or establishing community-based water management initiatives. Effective communication is key at this stage. Communicating the findings and lessons learned to policymakers, community leaders, and the general public in a clear, concise, and compelling manner is crucial. Engaging stakeholders and building consensus around the best course of action is also essential for long-lasting impact. This step also involves considering the ethical implications of the solutions and their potential impact on different groups, as well as anticipating and addressing any challenges that might arise during implementation. This adaptive version of the scientific method encourages a more cyclical, iterative process of learning and improvement. Instead of seeking definitive answers, it champions a journey of discovery, refinement, and growth. By embracing this approach, we can tackle complex challenges more effectively, turning them into opportunities for innovation, resilience, and collective progress. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful content like this. Your support helps us continue to explore and share valuable knowledge with the world. Thanks for watching.